I'm Nora Duncan. I'm the State Director for AARP Connecticut, and welcome to another episode of Coffee and Tea with AARP Connecticut, a biweekly interview series where we interview policymakers and influencers on the issues important to people 50 plus in Connecticut and their families. Today, our guest is Department of Consumer Protection Commissioner Bryan Cafferelli, and we're also joined by AARP volunteer Loren Webber. I would love for the two of you to introduce yourselves. So let's go ahead and start with Commissioner Cafferelli. Commissioner?
Hi, glad to be here. My name is Bryan Cafferelli. I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Consumer Protection. I was nominated by the governor earlier this year and confirmed by the legislature, and I've been in the role since mid-March. Enjoying the job and really happy to be here with you to discuss with your group what the Consumer Protection Agency does and how we can help out.
Great, we're glad to have you. Loren, why don't you go ahead and say a few words about yourself?
Hi, I am Loren Webber, and I've been a volunteer with AARP Connecticut for just over a year now. I wear lots of hats within the organization, but one hat that I especially love to wear is the Fraud Watch Network. And I really enjoy presenting programs throughout Connecticut with other team members from the Fraud Watch Network team. It feels great to educate people, and it feels great to just be out all throughout Connecticut and meet people.
Great, Loren, thank you. So Commissioner Cafferelli, you have one of those agencies that has a lot of responsibilities. So trying to focus in a little bit about where our work crosses over, I think the two biggest things that come to mind for me are homemaker companion services and then frauds and scams in general. So maybe you can help our viewers understand the homemaker companion world. I find it confusing. The licensing you currently do, the changes that have just taken place to better regulate the industry, and what consumers can expect in the years to come.
Yeah, sure. We get a lot of questions about that. Basically, who they are, they being the homemaker companions, and what they do and what our role is as consumer protection, and where that begins and ends, and where public health picks up in terms of what medical tasks. And so I'm glad you asked, and let me just kind of unpack that for you. So at DCP, we regulate the homemaker companion agencies. And a lot of families go there to find support for their older family members who need help with day-to-day tasks like going grocery shopping or cleaning or laundry. And I think something that's helpful that we have on our website, there's two guides that are related to the homemaker companion agencies. One is for consumers. It's available in 7 languages. That's something we've responded to and found that we have a very diverse population in Connecticut, so it's helpful to have that available. And the second guide is a guide to advertising rules for homemaker companion agencies. It's also available in a variety of languages. And it's helpful to consumers and the people watching this because they get better understand what an HCA can and cannot do by reading that. That's at ct.gov/DCP. There's a homemaker companion agency box on our website. And so we're working with the Department of Public Health to make sure it's clear that these homemaker companion agencies don't perform healthcare or medical tasks like home health care agencies, which are regulated by DPH. And so we've been working with the industry itself to make sure they know what they can and can't advertise as if they perform medical tasks. So it remains clear to the consumer what these agencies can do. And that's why the legislature has adopted policies that have guidelines to make it understandable to consumers that medical tasks are not part of a homemaker companion agency. It could confuse family members if they advertised as such, and they would believe maybe in error that they were hiring a home healthcare worker. So it really becomes important when we're hiring people to care for our loved ones. And oftentimes we have to do it quickly because disease and illness comes on unexpectedly. And so you're scrambling to find someone to help you out and you're not quite sure. And so you don't want to be confused and misled by advertising. So that's one thing. So in the recent years, we have given, subject matter expertise, I should say, in terms of our experience with how consumers have related with these agencies to the legislature, and they have strengthened the oversight of the homemaker companion agencies. And 2 years ago, the legislature redefined comprehensive background checks for these agencies and strengthened the background checks for the homemaker companion agencies. Sometimes people call HCAs because becomes a mouthful when I keep saying it. And so we found that that's increased safety and security by beefing up the background checks, as well as peace of mind for family members who are hiring these homemaker companions to be with, your loved ones while you're at work or caring for your children. And so that's been very helpful. Last year, the legislature in HB 5781 was a bill that covered many related aging statutes. So you were very well aware of that bill and tracking it, as I know you do. And that included addressing HCAs currently overseen by DCP. And we worked with the stakeholders and the aging committee because we watched so much growth occur in the homemaker companion industry. As more and more people are aging in place, there's just been a boom and a need for more of these individuals to be caring for our loved ones. And there's been an increase in the scope of what they've been doing. And the bill is a start of a transition plan to move homemaker companions out of DCP oversight and under a broader home health care umbrella overseen by the Department of Public Health. So they, right now we have it, and it was originally under the purview of DCP to make sure that the contracts were included everything so that when you were hiring a HCA, you understood the scope of what they were doing and what you were going to pay for it. There was it came under DCP's purview back in 2005, and so much has changed since then. And so this is now a holistic view is to the legislature has begun the transition to move it to DPH, but it's going to take some time to kind of figure all that out and work out those logistics. But it'll provide a better service and clarity for the industry and consumers when that happens. In the meantime, while that's happening, the legislation addressed a lot of disclosure related issues, helping consumers by requiring the HCAs to disclose the scope of services that they can provide, as well as providing certain disclosures when they will no longer be providing services to Connecticut consumers. So in other words, if an HCA is leaving the state or no longer going to do business or changing its model to not offer a certain type of service that you currently are getting for a loved one, they have to give you a little notice so that you can make arrangements. So you're just one day you don't find out that your mom or dad or uncle is not going to be cared for. So those are the type of things. I know it's a lot that kind of to throw at you, but it's a big issue and something that your audience should be very well aware of. And it's confusing. I get that, and there probably will be some follow-up questions. So if there are, they can contact you or us, or our website's a good first step too.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Commissioner. We did work hard on this, and one of our staff, Anna Doragazi, served on the task force that helped make recommendations along with some of your staff. And the goal is that it becomes a less confusing, more predictable service arena in the future. So I think we're making good steps toward that. And I appreciate the work of your team on this. We get a lot of questions, and I find it hard to answer. So I know if I'm finding it hard, it's got to be really hard for people with no experience or even understanding of what this system can provide.
Yeah, so, if I could just add one thing, I want to applaud and underscore the hard work that the HCAs do. This is not a result of bad actors. It's just that there's a need for clarity in terms of the kind of helping out with the groceries and cleaning and stuff, and then the medical care that, and we want to make sure that that's kind of the scope. But there are a lot of really helpful and great agencies that provide a wonderful service to family members. And so, just want to make sure that everyone's clear on what they're getting. And it's not a systemic problem with the industry itself. It's just, we want to make sure that people are understanding what they are getting when they hire a particular different agency.
Exactly. Thank you. So I think I'm going to kick it over to Loren to get into that frauds and scams piece we mentioned earlier.
Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner, we know Connecticut consumers are getting conned by unscrupulous actors, and the trend shows no sign of slowing. The Federal Trade Commission reported that Connecticut consumers lost roughly $57.5 million to scams in 2022, with a median loss of $670. At the AARP Fraud Watch Network, we really try hard to help people spot scams so that they can stop those scams. And we love working with your team on the Elder Justice Coalition of Connecticut. Can you tell us what kind of complaints keep the DCP the busiest?
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you. And it's good to see you, Loren. I first want to thank you and the entire AARP organization for the relationship that our agencies do have. There's a lot of work that we do in conjunction with you on the Elder Justice Coalition. And I participated not long ago in a market fairness call that we had, and your frauds division was there. I think that you may have been there too. I'm not sure. And just wonderful work, and all this stuff happens by and large behind the scenes. And so it's really fun for me to be able to make people aware of what's happening. And it kind of leads me into this topic of what you're saying, and I find myself talking about a lot, is that education is so key. And so if we can get ahead of this, that's the first thing that we can do to help consumers, is to prevent them from falling prey to a scam, right? And one of the first steps is recognizing it. And look, I want to say that it's not that that this population, that your audience is more susceptible. It's just that scammers have kind of micro-targeted each different group, and they found ways to kind of prey at their vulnerabilities. So there are scams happening from the generation, I forget what generation we're on now, the TikTok generation we were talking about earlier. But I mean, it's just, and they found ways to appeal to people all across the board from every background. And so that's first and foremost, is that we're all vulnerable and we're all susceptible to these things. And so the minute you recognize that, it's really half the battle. And you kind of look for, some of the easy things, but they are seasonal home improvement scams. We find holiday shopping scams, and some of them follow the news if there's tragedies that happen, like we've seen earthquakes or fires. People, and this makes me feel great how charitable we are as a society. But unfortunately, there are those who will, try and prey on those, good natures that we have. So, like I said, easiest to avoid the scam rather than trying to pick up the pieces, because it is difficult to recover funds lost in a scam. But learning these red flags, protecting your information, and helping your family members recognize them, the warning signs are the best things that you can do. Just a little aside, I have two parents that are, on an age, I don't know what the right term is, but they're, on the cusp of 80. And so every so often I'll get a call, or, they'll show me a email and it looks like it's from the bank. And so you have to kind of walk them through of like, check the email address to make sure that you're seeing who it's really from, because these things will look so real, like they're coming from like the bank that you deal with at a common place, or Amazon. I'll get a frantic phone call. It says I ordered X, Y, and Z. I didn't order it. Wants me to log in. I'm like, well, just by and large, ignore it. But so with the home improvement scams, we found that it's commonplace kind of in the spring, summer, fall type time. But now, I mean, it could kind of fall under home improvement, but chimney scams are relevant during this season as we all start. In New England, it's always the kind of the who loses the bet of the last to turn on the heat, right? Like there's ardent, I'm not turning on my heat until November 1st. And so you get the wood and build a fire. And so there are chimney people out there saying that you've got to clean your chimney every so often, or they'll come by and inspect it and tell you need all sorts of repairs done to it. But, you look for people who are looking for a large deposit. I'm telling you that you need more work than it actually does. So never make a judgment based on emotion. Never fall prey to someone who tells you that you need to act immediately or you'll lose some type of great deal. Grandma always said, if it was too good to be true, it probably is, right? Get references when you're having any type of home improvement done. And if it's for a chimney, find some of your neighbors who have had chimney work done, or if this person you think is reputable, ask them for 3 people they've done work with. And don't be afraid to do that and call those people and see what their experience was like. And so a little due diligence goes a very long way. With regard to home improvement scams, I will give another plug to our agency, that if you check to make sure that the home improvement contractor is registered with our agency, then if something does go wrong and you report it to us and we bring an action and you get a judgment either through a hearing at our agency or in court, and the contractor has fled or doesn't have the funds to make you whole, there's a guarantee fund that we can pay you up to $25,000 of lost funds, and then we'll go after the individual or the entity that wronged you and get the money back from them. But in the meantime, you're made whole. And so, because to a lot of people, it's a big outlay. Not to focus just on home improvement, but shopping scams, like links you don't recognize, things that are too good to be true. Within the next hour, you'll get a free X, Y, or Z, and all you have to do is pay shipping. Phone, email, and texting scams are huge. They come from numbers you don't recognize. Again, containing information, asking you to act quickly, or telling you that your bank account or Amazon account has been hacked, and so you need to log in and change something. And that's when you go to log in through this fake website, they'll get that information. That's really what they're looking for, is to get information from you, because all it takes, I read one time, is 2 or 3 pieces of key information from you, and then they could get your identity, and then it gets really, really problematic. But imposter scams is another thing to look out for, where individuals impersonate a government agency like the IRS and tell you owe a fine or fee, or even that you could be arrested. I mean, if you, and the IRS will never call and ask you for money over the phone. Charity scams, I think I mentioned, which is just, to me, a horrible, horrible crime when people prey on the good natures of others. And but it happens around the holidays a lot, when people are feeling generous, and they'll try and take advantage of impersonating a charity. Charities are registered with our agency, so you can look them up on our agency. If you're getting a solicitation, a reputable charity would not be afraid for you to do some homework and go to their website and donate on your own, and not through the person who's pressuring you to do so on the phone. So, take your time, do some research, figure out who you want to give to, and make that donation if you want to and have the means. But they're always looking for ways to trick you. And so the warning signs. But I think I'm just looking at some notes I've put together here, some frequent junk mail and spam calls, unfamiliar payments that are being made. And then look for some warning signs that a loved one may have been scammed. If somebody that you in your family or a close friend that you help out, and they have trouble paying bills or buying other necessities, like a lack of funds could mean that they have been scammed. So A lot of people, when they get scammed, are embarrassed and don't want to come forward and report it. And so it's sadly, it's kind of the reflex that a lot of us have, is like, oh gosh, how could I be such a, like, how could I fall prey to that? But so many people do. And so coming forward helps you and helps others around you to tell your story so people can avoid it. And there are some ways for some recourse, either through law enforcement or some things that we can do. But again, it's best to avoid it, because oftentimes you don't make yourself totally whole. Again, our website, ct.gov/DCP, you can file a complaint always with our office, and we are happy to look into this. And even if you're not a victim of a scam, we encourage people to let us know if you're aware of one, so that we can work with our partners at federal and local levels to spread the awareness. Again, the best weapon we have is to avoid it. There are a lot of ways to do that. And so I've just kind of touched on a lot of them, but I feel like I've taken up way too much of your time for one question.
That's okay. It comboed up some things. Loren, I mean, talk about everything that the commissioner just said. Sounds so much like what we do in the AARP Fraud Watch Network in order to help people spot a scam so they can stop the scam, right? It's a lot easier to stop it than it is to recover from it. You want to add anything, Loren, from your volunteer work?
Just that it's great to be out there, because we're trying to tell folks exactly a lot of the things that you just told me, and that the more we can share this information, the more people can pass it on, and hopefully the less people will be taken in these scams.
Exactly.
That's why it's great to have a partner like you. So the more
Thank
of us
you.
out there spreading that word, and you guys just do such a great job. So thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
that, Commissioner.
So, Commissioner, there's a lot of, you kind of touched on it, right? There's a lot of people playing in this scams and fraud space. How do you work with other state agencies, regulators, and law enforcement to help consumers here in Connecticut? You kind of touched on it, but any details you might share, because I think people do sometimes just not know where to go when they have the concern, the scam, the fraud, the how do I get my money back?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that again, and I hate to be a broken record, but it bears repeating. I mean, that's why education's so crucial. And so you can start with us, you can start with AARP. I mean, start somewhere is the point, and we can help you go to the right direction or start a file and then reach out to our partners. If you're comfortable more so with your local law enforcement, you can always call the police if you feel that you've been scammed by somebody, because it's a crime to steal money from people. So collaboration, as you point out, is critical. We work closely with our sister agencies, as well as federal and local partners and organizations such as yourself. It can be terribly confusing for a consumer to understand where they need to go. Like I said, even if we're not the right place, we can usually help find the right one for you to wind up at. Scams and fraud largely are criminal issues. So we do work closely with law enforcement, to help victims. And again, to prevent frauds and scams. We also work with agencies like the Federal Trade Commission to get the word out and help educate people. And so collaborating to use all the tools at our disposal is kind of a whole package. And I know I didn't directly answer your question as what the number is to call, but I mean, essentially it is any number that you have at your fingertips that you feel comfortable, either law enforcement, someplace like AARP, us, the Attorney General's office has a wonderful scams and consumer protection unit that we work closely with as well. So there's a lot of help out there, and that's one of the things I love doing, is telling people about the good work that we can do to help Connecticut consumers.
And I would say the AARP Fraud Watch Network helpline is staffed by well-trained volunteers from across the country. So if you happen to be watching this and you're not from Connecticut, or you happen to be concerned about someone in another state that may have experienced a fraud or a scam, going ahead and calling that phone number can get you to the right resources in any state and help address whether or not you're facing a fraud or a scam, whether or not a crime has been committed and the like. So obviously on social media, you can end up with people watching from anywhere. So the AARP Fraud Watch Network helpline is a really valuable resource for people of all ages if you just need to talk to somebody who's trained to help in any part of the country. So I guess, Commissioner, we'll wrap up with this. You're not brand new, but this is your first year in the job as Commissioner of DCP. Are there issues that you're hoping to tackle in your term to make Connecticut a friendlier place for consumers?
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm not new, but newish. So it's about 6 months in. And some of the things that I discussed during the interview process and after I was asked to do the job was really leveraging technology was a real goal of the administration and quite frankly myself, because I think it's helpful not just for agency staff, but moreover consumers and credential holders, is that anything we can do to make kind of our front facing or interaction with people a little friendlier and easier to use, the better. So we've done that on a number of occasions to help. I mean, it's not necessarily for consumers, but even those looking to do business in the state, to guide you whether or not you need a license or registration, and if so, which one it is. And now I'm proud to say that every one of the applications and registrations that we have are all online, which took, I'm not going to name names, but maybe there are some other agencies that have a little more of a hill to climb than we did, but we are happily there. And I think it's helpful to also just have again the meat and potatoes there for consumers of the complaint center. We have a staffed phone line and emails that are responded to in short order. We handle over 15,000 complaints a year, which is a lot. In terms of they're oftentimes very complex issues that we have to coordinate other agencies or businesses. We play kind of a moderator for consumers, so making sure and keeping a watchful eye on that turnaround time and customer service, which is always paramount for the agency, and we're doing an excellent job at that. We help people recover money from through this dispute process. And last year we recovered about $700,000 for consumers that had issues with various complaints that they brought to our attention. Spreading the word is another big thing. I think that the more that we can get out there and the more that we can focus on our communications and outreach to communities on every level possible by meeting with groups like yours. I was at a senior center in Shelton. It was a packed house. I didn't realize that, but it was a couple maybe last month, and there's probably like 250 people there, and we have a table there. And I know it might seem insignificant, but there were some great conversations had with people who either had stories of stuff they had gone through or were needing help, and so we could kind of have that interaction there. And so we try and cover it from every angle, and and leverage other agencies. We work closely with a lot of our sister agencies. We intersect on so many different topics, as you said. Like DCP covers everything under the sun, and we have a great relationship with our other agencies, but just as important with other entities like yourself. And so the more we can do that and the more events we could do together, I appreciate, and thank you.
Yes, thank you. And a special shout out to Catherine Blinder, who does a lot of the outreach with us.
Yes.
From your organization.
She's phenomenal. Yes.
Yeah. Yep. She's great. And our volunteers work with her. She just did a training with us. I think that was last month, Loren. It might have been the beginning of this month, actually.
Yeah.
To keep our volunteers
and banking, right?
Department of Banking.
Yeah.
To keep our volunteers as sharp as they can be, because they're out facing people at fairs and festivals and presentations, just like like you are. So it's all been great. We look forward to working with your administration going forward. And, you know, Loren, kudos to you and your volunteer partners for always being out there and being responsive to the community requests that we get. If anybody out there does want an AARP Fraud Watch presentation in their community, they can go to aarp.org/CT Presents and complete the form to make that request. And Commissioner, good luck. And I look forward to a couple more productive legislative sessions with you as well.
Yes, well, good. Same here. And it's always great to see you, Nora.
Great to see you. And thanks, everybody. We'll be back in a couple weeks with more great guests, and take a look at our other offerings. We've got, recorded past presentations of this program that we know people will find helpful. So everyone have a great day, and I will just time date this with Happy Thanksgiving, Happy Halloween, and everything else that's happening this time of year. So take care, everybody. Thanks so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Take care.